Good day, this is Brer Ph.D. and my Ph.D. stands for post-hole digger, for I continue to dig on the proper foundation for the prodigal son and daughter. Subjective and objective truth with pagan Christianity. First question that pops up for this week, or today actually, is should Trump pardon himself as he leaves office? The fact that President Trump considers this, while he does not want to concede, tells us a lot about the characteristics of a man so complicated that he doesn't understand which door to turn himself. Let's check out and see what we can come up with. Now, my question to you is, should he or shouldn't he? Good day, this is Brer Ph.D. and my Ph.D. stands for post-hole digger. That means that I continue to work on the proper foundation for the prodigal son and daughter. Now, post-hole digger we understand, but what we need to dig on today is on the question, should President Trump pardon himself as he leaves office? While he does not want to concede his question, and my answer is clear. But before we get to that answer, I like to continue and deal with a couple of issues. See, when I'm watching a flood or what happened, a tsunami, in flooding, it is natural for one to seek higher ground to protect oneself. So are we deemed sophisticated if we enjoy thinking and talking about scripture, something which does not show a clear picture or is just a person's outlook or expression of opinion? So, are the original New Covenant teachings the embodiment of extremism? However, the term extremism only applies to the self-imposed poverty in which we dwell or walk the path that the men and women of wisdom have called the way. The essence of living is not constrained or to keep one within, to bring God awareness into every experience of life, creating the foundational mindset that enables one's vital energies channeled back into oneself inner source rather than out into the world. From a biblical perspective, what one subjective to the law of God accomplishes is to start the process where man's innate spiritual nature becomes evident in people's lives. If the pagan is to become the Jew, and the Jew is to be transformed into Israel, there are no other means to bring this about. For instance, a very simple example. In this example, we go to a hospital. And I don't know if you've ever been to a hospital, and particularly during this pandemic, you don't like to talk about this. But I know that when you go to a hospital and the doctor is not 100% sure, what they like to do is they like to establish your health conditions first. And they use tools for that we are vaguely familiar with. In general, we know the terms, we know there is a DNA, we all have it. And I'm assured that you must have heard about an EEG. In 2020, everyone knows that there is a monitor, a person's electroencephalogram, an EEG, a record of the tiny cells, electrical impulses actually produced by the brain. In other words, somewhere, somehow here, there are little things working. As we're talking, we don't see them, there are brain activities. So when you come in coma and arrive at the hospital, they don't know what to do. They don't know what is happening. They will do an EEG and that will give them an understanding the brain is up to. By measuring characteristic wave patterns, the EEG will help diagnose certain conditions of the mind. So the EEG is an instrument for receiving and recording the brain cells' electric potential. It consists of a vacuum tube amplifier that magnifies the electrical current obtained through electrodes placed on the scalp and electromagnetically records the patterns on a graphic chart. So let's compare this to a power station. The power station we have yet to reach. To figure out why the Hebrews coined their belief, we first must realize that our thoughts and words we speak have their correlation in a pattern of our modern system of electrical power. Like I just mentioned about the EEG. When we speak, we have something that happens in our life. We don't see it. We don't see it around, but there's something that magically or scientifically proven will be proven, or eventually we come to that understanding that what we say is what will happen. So that is a condition of our personality. For instance, when we have an appliance that consumes power, and current moved through the electrical wires by force called voltage. Now nobody can see voltage, but if you take the wires and you hold them both, you will eventually feel there is voltage. Okay? So you might say, I don't believe you, but you feel it, you will agree with me, something is there. Now suppose that the electrical plant's transmission is not adequately insulated. In other words, there is a wire loose, with the result that the electrical appliance would be energy starved and could not function as intended. So to explain it more to us personally, some of us might ask, what is an EEG and why is it done? Well, to simplify it, it can determine brain activity and changes useful information in diagnosing brain disorders, especially epilepsy and another seizure disorder. An EEG might also help diagnose and treat different conditions. For instance, brain tumor, brain damage from a head injury. For instance, when you're playing and you're out there playing soccer and you think you're invincible, you hit a ball, you fall down on the ground, and all of a sudden everything stops. Nobody knows what's happening. You're young, and it has happened lately several times. People don't know. They panic. They go to the hospital, and EEG is right away activated, and there it shows. They can see brain dysfunction, and it can have a variety of causes. Inflammation of the brain, it can be a stroke, it can be a sleep disorder. So an EEG might also confirm brain death in someone in a persistent coma. In other words, a continuous EEG is used to help fight the right level of amnesia for someone in a medical-induced coma. There is little or no discomfort during an EEG, for the electrodes transmit no sensations. They record your brain waves according to the information released by the Mayo Clinic. So this is information I pulled off the site from the Mayo Clinic because I wanted to make sure. So when we understand the EEG checks, we now want to determine our spiritual depth. Is there a way of measuring what we spiritually believe? And when I say believe, we need these considerations to determine spiritual depth. We lost the right spiritual center by translating the sacred writings. They transformed the holy writings into Hebrew of the regular people. In other words, Hebrew spoken by people, ordinary people, that changed the language. With its punctuation marks, Hebrew translated it into Greek. And they had a lesser gritty understanding or a revelation of the lesser mysteries. And on top is the Greek text translated into the spiritual dead languages like English. They grappled on too little more than on a moral code. Thus, the multitude of believers had scraps to shape their lives, devoid of the multidimensional essence. So when God spoke a language that had such a power, that was at such high dimension, if you could measure it from 1 to 12, God spoke on the 12th dimension. And we human beings, we are used to maybe 3, 4, and when I say dimensions, we have a line, we have a triangle, we have a round circle. Those are the dimensions we usually work with when you're working computers and scientists. scientific developments, or if you're an Einstein, you might be working on a fifth, sixth, or seventh, or eighth dimension in order to calculate all whatever is going to happen when a plane releases certain things. And so, devoid of their multiculturalism, the multidimensional essence, the scriptures lost the power to arouse the inner dimensions of man's spiritual nature. So an EEG takes little measurements of our brain waves. But when we speak, we have a spiritual brain wave that we activate. And the way we talk, that will determine a lot about our spiritual nature. So we have pagan Christianity. I spent a lot of time developing or explaining that on a video. But just so we understand the involvement and the arrangement of the Roman political entity. It was the Roman emperor. Whether it was the Roman emperor in collaboration with the lame duck leadership of the 4th century believers after 300 years of persecution and killings in the arena. The emperor single-handedly decided the fate of the believers. These satanic influences explain the confusion. So I was raised a Christian. I was born a Christian. I got a slap on my bum and I was a Roman Catholic. When my mom died, all of a sudden something changed because she was not allowed to be buried on sacred ground because my dad was not a Roman Catholic. And that gave the first confusion. The second, when I got excommunicated, and then again excommunicated, I wonder what in the world is going on. What are the natural laws of creation? And so the satanic confusion, the influences the satanic influences created a confusion. And I was wondering why. And what are the natural laws of creation? Now, when we talk about creation, I'm talking about God Almighty. For some, they call it the big boom. But when God speaks, it was a loud voice. And yes, it could for some be a big boom. But anyway, we understood that value gets lowered through translation degradation. But humanity never explained the difference between the natural laws of creation and pagan Christianity. At least in all my studies, I never heard about it. I'd seen manipulation on the stock market. I'd heard of other manipulations on very high levels in the billions of dollars by people that I was amazed that they were involved in stuff that you rather don't talk about. But like in the paradise, it took Satan a little doubt to change the outcome of humanity. It was this, are you sure? Psst. As we become more astute in reading the Bible and the difference in the human and man-made rules, we know the Creator's natural laws, which are spirit and spiritual. The Greek mystery religion and the secret cult of the Greco-Roman world offered individuals religious experiences not provided by the official public religions. They originated in tribal ceremonies performed by primitive people in many parts of the world. This region's primary characterization is the secrecy association with the particulars of the initiation and the ritual practice not revealed to outsiders. In other words, we had already the Freemason, we had the synagogue of Satan, where all those things were already contributed and experienced and practiced. So the mystery religions or the mystery cults, what are they? These religions are commonly called the mystery religions or mystery cults. Are those religions? Well, some of them actually, you can bring them under three main cults. The ancient Greek and pre-Greek origin. They are Eleusinian mysteries, Dionysian mysteries, and the Orphic mysteries. Each cult represents a different type of religious experience. None of the three are alike, and they discussed civic religion, but still based on many of the same deities and myth. As humanity got stuck on the Greek mystery religions, God created paradise to be everlasting. But everything Satan touched changed temporarily. God created for eternity, meaning forever. Yet Satan sold people on the short term, immediate gratification through fasting in lifetime. Let me repeat this for a moment. So Satan sold people on the short term, immediate gratification, though fast in time. And in time span exciting for the moment. If we look around today, it is exponentially increased significantly. Everything has to be quick, fast, faster and fast. The natural laws of creation of the Almighty God. What the biblical scholars saw in the case of Warren did not surprise informed people. Biblical scholars said that the late A. Powell Davies were not disturbed by what they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, because they had known all along that the origin of Christianity was not what was commonly supposed to have been. This is quoted by Miller, Burroughs in the More Light on the Dead Sea Scrolls. They knew all along that Jesus was part of a movement whose quest was to be God's kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Doesn't that sound awesome, folks? We can even find it in Exodus 19 verse 6. Did not Jesus himself tell us, ye worship you know not what? We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. In John 4 verse 22. So what are the obstacles that confront the purpose of creation? The obstacles confronting us is that until we embrace a more precise understanding of the true nature of Yeshua, as most people know him, Jesus, about ourselves and the purpose of creation, we will remain spiritually stagnant. In other words, we were standing still and the gates to the kingdom will continue obscured from our perception. So who was Jesus in the eyes of those who lived with him? Who was Yeshua? The one who spoke to them and who he taught. Their perception of Jesus was captured by Gibbon, who wrote about the Hebrew followers of Yeshua. They referred Yeshua as the greatest of the prophets, endowed with supernatural virtue and power. They ascribed to this person and to his future reign all the predictions of the Hebrew oracles, which relate to the spiritual and everlasting kingdom of the promised Messiah. This is in the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. And I finally got myself a couple of pages, actually chapters from that. And I hope to read more. Yeshua taught his disciples they were all the prodigal sons of the Father. So everyone, whether son or daughter, we are prodigal sons and daughters of the Father. He taught his disciples that the Father was waiting for us as we were lost in a far country. We were all dead, and he, being the first among his brothers to fulfill the law of God, was the first to return to the kingdom. This is in Hebrew 12 verse 28. And therefore, since we have received an unshakable kingdom, let us have grace through which we may offer service that will please God with reverence and with fear. And in Revelations 1 verse 5, and from Yeshua the Messiah, the faithful witness, the firstborn from the dead, and the earth king's ruler, to him, the one who loves us and who has freed us from our sins for his blood. And in the King James Version, this is said in Revelations 1 verse 5, this is the perspective of the words where it is written, and from Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness and the first begotten of the dead. So what does that all mean? Is it so confusing to figure out what the Bible talks about from a creation point of view? See, the beauty is that from a biblical perspective, being reborn from the dead is the same destiny of all of humanity as seen in the words of the apostle. And we will get back to Mr. Trump very soon. God has fulfilled the same unto us, his children, in that he has raised Yeshua again, as it is also written in the second psalm. Thou art my son, this day I have begotten thee. This is in Acts 13, verse 33. Yet the Gentile world, which lacked the God-centered foundation, Jews refused to believe what Jesus taught and what the apostle witnessed to, as seen in the words of Barnes' notes on Acts 13 verse 33 regarding the terms, have I begotten thee. This evidently cannot be understood in a literal sense. It refers to the relation of an earthly father to his children, but in no sense can it be applied to the relation of God the Father to the Son. It must therefore be figuratively. Folks, coming back to Mr. Trump in the White House, should Trump pardon himself as he leaves office? Or can he be forgiven? Well, depending where you come from. I am in Europe. I am not an American. But I'm very keenly aware that decisions made in the United States reflect here in Europe. I have kids living in Canada, very close by. I used to work in New York. I hopped on a plane and a couple of hours later I was working downtown New York. And so, yes, we have a close affinity. Should Trump pardon himself? Well, my experience is that if you start speaking about a pardon, and I'm talking as a layman, I have spent lots of time, over 12 years, actually in total of 18 years, in criminal law, and before insurance law, which is different. And when you try to establish something, it has to be before a judge or judge and jury. It has to be a crime. It has to be established that it is a crime, and one is sentenced for a crime. So why is Trump so concerned of being pardoned? That must mean that he has a guilty conscience. As much as Trump has been spreading all kinds of fabrications and conflicting information, I don't want to call it lies, because some people get very upset about that, but what he has been saying reflects what he is. So let's forget all that, what he has said. He will not concede that Mr. Biden elect will become the president. So if that is the case, why is he pardoning himself in his own mind? Is it correct that he gave away the planes or quit renewing planes that are very important to the American security, including the European security against the Cold War conditions we used to have? And so why is Mr. Trump so concerned? Did he do something that really broke all the norms while he wanted to burn America because he was not re-elected? Or are there other things coming on to the surface that we don't know about? See, when we talk about God and his level of forgiveness, and when we're talking about the laws of this world, of society, that actually started about 400 years ago, for the United States at least, then we're looking at a whole different situation. God forgives, but you still have to give accounts. And if we want to give Mr. Trump a pardon, he has to give first account over what he did. And he refuses to give account of what he has done. So if he refuses to give account, he should not be pardoned. Because Mr. Trump's criminal elect is familiar with the term guilty as charged. He has never acknowledged that anything was wrong in public. He couldn't care less. So then we have to compare it. So Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1st of the first U.S. Constitution. A federal pardon in the United States is the precedent of the United States action that sets aside the punishment for a federal crime. So what are the prospective crimes that Mr. Trump could have done? Well, we have a few things there that we can compare it with. Currently, all I know, I have the numbers from World War II. in 1941, 1945, during that war, so 4 years, during that war, 405,399 Americans died. My family got set free. So we have always honored and respected those that sacrificed their lives to come and to set Holland free. So those people have 460 people that die per day. Now on Thanksgiving's Day, which is today, over 2,300 people died every day from the indecisions of Trump and his compatriots. As Trump debates to pardon himself as the biggest scoundrel of American history on November 26, 2020, why would we let him abuse the office again? Like so many of us have been an example for others to behave in a pattern expected from a man in power. Here is the President of the United States of the Americas, and he should ride the wave. His buddies who benefited from his decisions should be likewise incriminated with Trump. Let us call them the enablers. Now, enablers are also those that are Christian enablers. People that have been promoting and prophesying that this man and blah, 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 blah. It is sad, Pat Robertson. It is very sad, Kenneth Copeland. It is so sad, John Hakey, Paula White, Sid Roth, and many, many, many others. But you ought to be held responsible, because if we do pardon Trump before he leaves office, how can you hold somebody accountable? I was held accountable for decisions made in my company. And I tell you, for 18 years. Why? Because somebody was disgruntled with the decision I'd made. I turned down somebody that wanted half of my company because we stood to make billions of dollars. And when I turned them down, it happens to be the head of the Freemasons. You know the power of Freemasons because maybe you belong to them. But even if you do belong to them, I would urge you, do not pardon Trump before he leaves office, to hold him accountable and those that are enabling him. If Trump's lame duck period and the administration is crying their way through an illegitimate occupation of the White House with glaring and frequent violations of the Hatch Act and the Emulation Clause committed daily, folks, Trump's deadly mishandling of the virus epidemic alone should be considered a crime against humanity. Over 256,000 people died. More people died during this corona pandemic. I don't understand it. But obstruction, the traditional peaceful transaction of power, is yet another treasonous act. Being the worst and the most outrageous president does not by itself throw you in jail, but at least not in the United States before Trump. Though being a criminal president, you should. Why do you not put political enemies in jail for their political acts? Because you have a freedom to act reasonable within reason. But since Trump most likely will face prosecution, it will not be because of his political beliefs. It will be because he is once again a regular citizen and doing the utmost to upset each one he did not while he was in office. As a person, as an individual citizen, he most likely will step on toes that are far more hurting, and that will put him in jail. So reality is, if you do not change your characteristics, if you do not change, and the change that I am referring to, if you do not want to admit that you were at fault, that you are a prodigal son, then how can you realign with the Creator, Abba, Father? Because the least that you can do is say, sorry, Father, I was wrong. If you can say that honestly, sincerely, and not just abba-dabba-doo and I am now a Christian, but you are a true follower of the way, the truth, and the light, then I believe God will forgive you, but you are still held accountable. I wish you all the best, my friend. for tough times never last. The tough people, they do.
not gonna make it. I don't feel the same as you. Why should I fake it? I don't love you like I used to. Oh, it's a tragic story, but it happens all the time. In every category, over a lifetime. Don't you know that everything falls apart? Everything falls apart. Everything with a star. Don't you know? Made of falls apart. Why should I fight it? It is nature's own law. I'm not a hypocrite. I just drew the final straw. Oh, it's a tragic story, but it happens all the time. In every category, over a lifetime. Don't you know that everything falls apart? Everything falls apart. Everything with a star. Don't you know? Later falls apart. If we lived forever, we wouldn't be always. And now it's over. I'm so glad it was you. Oh, it's a tragic story, but it happens all the time. In every category, over a lifetime. Don't you know that everything falls apart? Everything falls apart. Everything with a star. Oh, don't you know? Later falls apart. been knocking at your door. I know one thing for sure, I've never been so close before. It's one way or the other, no way in between. I ain't getting any younger, and you will stay forever a dream. You were truly my lover, but it was over so fast. Just one thing to discover. Oh no, it was never built to last. Well, you just fall in and out of love. Well, you just fall in and out of love. Well, you just fall in and out of love. Oh, you just fall. We stay indoors while the lovers roam the streets. And I know it ain't your fault. You just follow the heartbeats. You were truly my lover, but it was over so fast. Just one thing to discover. Oh no, it was never built to last. So throw it on the fire. Let us use the open door. We're at the end of the rainbow now. What the hell are we looking for? Well, you just fall in and out of love. Well, you just fall in and out of love. Well, you just fall in and out of love. Oh, you just fall. It was always on fire, our house, our dreams. We were dancing on a wire, reckless it seemed. We found holes in these walls, we like what we saw. Seems so strong until it falls, the final straw. Oh, I never felt like this before. When I was struck, you showed an open door. bound to make mistakes. Real love, we thought, but it was always on fire. Our house